Do you remember? That scarred face? Have you ever wondered, what made Scarface become an icon for an entire lost generation? Close your eyes and travel back to 1983. America was entering the Reagan era, a time of materialism, excess, and the relentless pursuit of success. Amid neon lights and synthesizer music, amid the cocaine-fueled nights of Miami, director Brian De Palma unleashed a film that would define an era. Scarface told the story of Tony Montana, a Cuban refugee who clawed his way from nothing to everything, trading in blood and powder, building an empire on violence and ambition. When it premiered, Scarface ignited controversy. Critics condemned its graphic violence, its profanity, its unflinching portrayal of drug culture. The film was rated X before being edited down to an R. Some called it exploitative, gratuitous, irresponsible. But audiences saw something else. They saw raw truth about the American dream's dark underbelly, where ambition becomes obsession, where success demands moral compromise, where the price of having it all is losing everything. Over time, Scarface transformed from controversial oddity into cultural monument. It became the ultimate gangster film for a new generation. Quoted endlessly, referenced in rap lyrics, plastered on posters in college dorms, Tony Montana's journey from dishwasher to drug lord became a twisted version of the immigrant success story. His famous line, "Say hello to my little friend," entered the cultural lexicon. His mansion, his mountain of cocaine, his violent downfall, all became symbols of the American dream corrupted. The film assembled a remarkable cast. Al Pacino as Tony Montana, the soul of the film, delivering one of cinema's most explosive performances. Michelle Pfeiffer as Elvira, the ice-cold beauty who represented everything Tony desired but could never truly possess. Stephen Bauer as Manny Ribera, Tony's loyal friend and the film's heart. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio as Gina Montana, Tony's sister and his greatest vulnerability. Robert Loggia as Frank Lopez, the old-school boss Tony would overthrow. Murray Abraham as Omar Suarez, the slick middleman. Paul Shinar as Alejandro Sosa, the Colombian drug lord who would ultimately destroy Tony. And Harris Yulin as Mel Bernstein, the corrupt cop navigating Miami's criminal underworld. These faces became golden icons of Hollywood, carrying both brilliance and shadow. But that was over 4 decades ago. Where are they now? What became of the actors who brought this dark American fable to life? Let us begin this journey with the man who wore the scar on his face, Tony Montana. The scene remains burned into cultural memory. Tony Montana, high on his own supply, wielding an M16 with a grenade launcher attached, screaming into the chaos of his final stand, "Say hello to my little friend." It's one of cinema's most iconic moments. The culmination of a performance so intense, so unhinged, so magnetic that it defined Al Pacino's career and created an enduring pop culture phenomenon. Al Pacino came to Scarface already a legend. He had given us Michael Corleone in the Godfather trilogy, the idealistic cop in Serpico, the desperate bank robber in Dog Day Afternoon. He'd won acclaim for playing measured, internal characters whose power came from restraint. But Tony Montana was different. This was Pacino unleashed, going bigger and broader than ever before, creating a character who operated at maximum volume from his first scene to his last. The transformation was remarkable. Pacino adopted a Cuban accent, studied the mannerisms of Cuban refugees in Miami, and created a physicality for Tony that was both animalistic and strangely charismatic. Tony wasn't subtle. He was all raw ambition and barely controlled rage. A man who wanted the world and would kill anyone who stood in his way. Pacino played him as both terrifying and oddly sympathetic. A monster we somehow understood. The famous chainsaw scene. The assassination of Frank Lopez. The growing paranoia fueled by cocaine. The incestuous obsession with his sister. The climactic shootout Pacino committed fully to every extreme moment. Director Brian De Palma gave him room to be excessive. And Pacino filled that space with one of the most operatic performances in film history. Critics initially didn't know what to make of it. Some called it over the top, cartoonish, too much, but audiences responded to Pacino's fearlessness, his willingness to go to places other actors wouldn't dare. Over time, the performance has been recognized as a masterwork of controlled excess, a character study of a man whose ambition literally consumes him. In the decades since, Al Pacino has become one of cinema's true immortals. Now, in his 80s, he continues working with the same intensity he brought to Tony Montana. He won his long overdue Oscar for Scent of a Woman, delivered brilliant work in Heat, The Insider, Angels in America, and The Irishman. He's played everyone from Shakespeare's Shylock to Phil Spector, never coasting on past glory, always seeking new challenges. Pacino has also become a cultural icon beyond his roles, his distinctive voice, his intense presence. Even his tendency to shout have become the subject of affectionate parody and endless tribute. He's never married, famously values his privacy, and has maintained creative control over his career by being selective about projects and uncompromising about his craft. But for millions of fans worldwide, he will always be Tony Montana, the scarred refugee who wanted it all and paid the ultimate price. The role that could have been career suicide became instead a defining moment, proof that sometimes the biggest risks yield the greatest rewards. But behind Tony's rage, there was always a loyal, light-hearted man, Manny. The image captures his essence perfectly. Manny flirting with Elvira. That playful smile. Those warm eyes full of mischief and genuine affection. Steven Bauer made Manny Ribera the soul of Scarface and the best friend who believed in Tony, even when Tony stopped believing in himself. The voice of reason in a world gone mad. The man who loved life even in the middle of death. Manny was Tony's opposite in every way. Where Tony was paranoid, Manny was trusting. Where Tony was consumed by ambition, Manny enjoyed simple pleasures, women, laughter, loyalty to his friend. Bauer played Manny with warmth and humor that provided crucial balance to Pacino's intensity. He made us care about Manny, made us see the humanity that Tony's world was destroying. The tragic irony of Manny's death, killed by Tony in a jealous rage over Gina, remains one of the film's most devastating moments. Bauer played the scene with perfect confusion and hurt. A man dying without understanding why his best friend had become his murderer. It's a small scene that carries enormous emotional weight, and Bauer delivered it beautifully. Steven Bauer was actually Cuban-American. Born Esteban Ernesto Echevarria Samson in Havana. He brought authentic cultural knowledge to the role, helping shape Manny's character with De Palma and Oliver Stone. Scarface was his breakthrough, introducing him to Hollywood as a charismatic presence capable of holding his own opposite Pacino. After Scarface, Bauer built a steady career primarily in television. He appeared in Wise Guy, one of the best crime shows of the 1,980 seconds, and had recurring roles in numerous series over the decades. He's worked consistently, appearing in everything from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul to Ray Donovan in Primal Fear. He's also had a successful career in Spanish-language television, particularly telenovelas, where his bilingual abilities and good looks made him a star. Bauer has never achieved the superstardom some predicted after Scarface. But he's built something perhaps more valuable: a long, diverse career, doing work he enjoys. He's appeared in well over 100 film and television productions, working steadily for 4 decades. He's embraced his Scarface legacy, appearing at conventions, doing interviews, and maintaining warm relationships with fans who remember Manny fondly. Now, in his 60s, Bauer continues working regularly. He's one of those actors whose face you recognize even if you can't place the name, whose presence always adds authenticity and warmth to any project. He's lived a full life, multiple marriages, children, the ups and downs of a working actor's career. With grace and humor, and in Manny's moment of happiness, Elvira appeared, the woman who changed Tony's entire world. The entrance remains one of cinema's most memorable, Elvira descending in a glass elevator, wearing that iconic blue dress, her expression cold and distant, moving like a goddess among mortals. Michelle Pfeiffer made Elvira Hancock unforgettable in just a handful of scenes, the ultimate unattainable woman, beautiful and remote, representing everything Tony Montana desired but could never truly possess. Elvira was the trophy, the symbol of having made it Frank Lopez's girl, then Tony's wife, but never really belonging to anyone. Pfeiffer played her as fundamentally disconnected from Tony, from the violence around her, from her own emotions. She was a woman who had sold her soul so gradually she didn't remember having one. The Ice Queen who occasionally revealed cracks in her facade, particularly in the devastating restaurant scene where she finally tells Tony exactly what she thinks of him and his world. Michelle Pfeiffer was only 25 when she made Scarface, and it transformed her from promising newcomer into genuine movie star. She brought sophistication and intelligence to Elvira, making her more than just a beautiful object. In Pfeiffer's hands, Elvira became a tragic figure in her own right, a woman who traded beauty for security and found emptiness instead. What's remarkable is how Pfeiffer used Scarface as a launching pad to one of Hollywood's most impressive careers. She followed Elvira with a string of iconic performances: Catwoman in Batman Returns, the lounge singer in The Fabulous Baker Boys, the mob wife in Married to the Mob, the dangerous liaison in Dangerous Liaisons. She earned 3 Oscar nominations and became one of the most sought-after actresses of the 1,980 seconds and 90 seconds. Pfeiffer made interesting choices throughout her career, turning down Basic Instinct and other roles that might have been commercially successful but artistically limiting. She took time away from Hollywood to focus on family, adopting a daughter and marrying television writer David E. Kelly. She was selective about roles, preferring quality over quantity, artistic challenge over safe commercial choices. In recent years, Pfeiffer has experienced a remarkable renaissance. Her performance in Mother reminded everyone of her fearless dramatic abilities. She joined the Marvel Cinematic Universe as Janet Van Dyne in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Introducing herself to a new generation of fans, she continues choosing diverse, challenging roles that showcase her range. Now, in her 60s, Pfeiffer remains stunning and talented. Having aged with grace rare in Hollywood, she's become an elder stateswoman of cinema, respected for her body of work and her integrity. But for many, she'll always be Elvira, cool, beautiful, forever out of reach. Elvira was the dream, the obsession. But Tony had another woman, connected by blood, his sister Gina. The image is pure innocence corrupted. Gina spinning on the disco floor, that naive smile lighting her face, dancing without awareness of the danger surrounding her. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio made Gina Montana both sympathetic and tragic, Tony's baby sister. His sole remaining connection to innocence, the person he tried desperately to protect while simultaneously destroying. Gina represented everything Tony fought for and everything his choices destroyed. She was family, purity, hope, the one good thing in Tony's increasingly dark world. Mastrantonio played her with youthful energy and genuine affection for her brother, making their relationship complex and uncomfortable. Tony's obsessive protectiveness crossed lines. His rage when she became involved with Manny revealing something darker than brotherly concern. The scene where Tony discovers Gina with Manny and kills his best friend is Scarface, at its most operatic and tragic. Mastrantonio played Gina's confusion and horror perfectly. She loved both men and couldn't understand why Tony would destroy them all. Her final scene, drugged and broken, appearing in Tony's office in a negligee and taunting him before being killed in the crossfire, completed her arc from innocent girl to corrupted casualty. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio was relatively unknown when cast in Scarface, but she held her own in scenes with Pacino and brought genuine emotion to a role that could have been thankless. The same year, she also appeared in The Color of Money opposite Paul Newman and Tom Cruise, earning an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress and establishing herself as a serious dramatic talent. Throughout the 1,980 seconds and 90 seconds, Mastrantonio built an impressive filmography. She starred in The Abyss, James Cameron's underwater thriller. Holding the center of the film opposite Ed Harris, she appeared in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves as Maid Marian, bringing strength and intelligence to a role often played as merely decorative. She earned another Oscar nomination for The Color of Money and consistently chose roles that challenged her. Unlike many actresses of her generation, Mastrantonio transitioned successfully to television and stage work as film roles became less frequent. She appeared in Grim and Limitless, bringing gravitas to supporting roles. She's also maintained an active theater career, returning regularly to stage work where she's earned critical acclaim. Now in her 60s, Mastrantonio has built a career based on quality rather than quantity. She's never sought the spotlight, preferring to let her work speak for itself. She's maintained privacy about her personal life, focusing on her craft rather than celebrity. But for those who remember Scarface, Gina's tragic arc remains one of the film's most emotionally devastating elements. And Mastrantonio's performance is a large part of why. And in this world of sin, Tony once bowed to one man, the boss Frank Lopez. The scene establishes his authority. Frank Lopez exhaling cigar smoke, smiling at Tony, the smile of power, of a man who has everything and knows it. Robert Loggia made Frank Lopez the old-school gangster, sophisticated and dangerous, a man who controlled Miami's drug trade with a velvet glove over an iron fist. Frank represented the establishment Tony would overthrow, the previous generation of criminals who had made their accommodations with power, who understood that discretion and relationships mattered as much as violence. Loggia played Frank with smooth charm and underlying menace, a man who could smile while ordering your death, who valued loyalty above all else and punished betrayal without mercy. The dynamic between Frank and Tony drove much of the film's first half. Frank saw potential in Tony, but also recognized his recklessness, his refusal to play by established rules, Loggia made Frank's growing wariness of Tony palpable, the mentor realizing his protege is becoming too powerful, too ambitious, too dangerous. When Tony finally has Frank killed, it's the definitive statement that a new, more brutal era has arrived. Robert Loggia was a veteran character actor by the time of Scarface, with a career stretching back to the 1,950 seconds. He'd appeared in dozens of films and television shows. Known for his distinctive gravelly voice and ability to play both tough guys and sophisticated operators, Frank Lopez became one of his signature roles, showcasing his ability to project authority and danger simultaneously. After Scarface, Loggia continued working prolifically. He earned an Oscar nomination for Jagged Edge and became a familiar face in both film and television. He appeared in Big Trouble, sharing the famous piano scene with Tom Hanks. He had memorable turns in Independence Day, Lost Highway, and Malcolm in the Middle. He became one of those actors whose presence immediately signaled quality and authenticity. Loggia worked right up until his death in 2015 at age 85. Appearing in well over 200 film and television productions across 7 decades, he was respected by colleagues for his professionalism, his no-nonsense approach to craft, and his ability to elevate any material. He never became a household name, but built something more lasting, a legacy of consistent excellence. After Frank's fall, another rose from the shadows, Alejandro Sosa. The voice cuts through the phone line like ice. Don't fuck me. Tony, don't you ever try to fuck me? Paul Schnarr's Alejandro Sosa didn't need much screen time to become unforgettable. The Colombian drug lord who represented power on a scale Tony Montana couldn't comprehend. A man who operated with ruthless efficiency and expected absolute obedience. Sosa was the ultimate boss, the man behind the curtain. The source of the product that built Tony's empire, Schnarr played him with chilling calm, no shouting, no visible anger, just absolute certainty in his power and willingness to destroy anyone who crossed him. The scene where Sosa has Omar hanged from a helicopter, then continues discussing business with Tony as if nothing happened, perfectly captured the character's casual brutality. When Tony refused to complete an assassination that would have killed innocent people, he sealed his fate. Sosa's revenge came swiftly and completely. The army of assassins that overwhelmed Tony's mansion in the final sequence were Sosa's message that no one defies him and lives of. Schnarr's Sosa represented consequences, the inevitable price of operating in a world where everyone is expendable. Paul Schnarr came to Scarface from a distinguished theater background. Particularly known for his work in classical productions, he brought sophistication and intelligence to Sosa, making him more than just another gangster, but rather a businessman who happened to deal in cocaine and death. His performance influenced how drug lords would be portrayed in countless films to follow. Tragically, Paul Schnarr's career was cut short when he died in 1989 at age 53 from complications related to AIDS. He was one of many talented people the entertainment industry lost during that devastating epidemic. At the time of his death, he was still working actively, having appeared in films like The Big Blue and Dream Lover. Though his time was brief, Schnarr left behind a powerful legacy. His Sosa remains one of cinema's most memorable villains, a man whose quiet menace was somehow more terrifying than Tony's explosive violence. Colleagues remembered him as a dedicated artist, a generous colleague, and a talent taken far too soon. But Tony didn't just face Sosa. He also had to deal with enemies within the law, like Detective Mel Bernstein. The scene drips with corruption, Bernstein confronting Tony in the restaurant, his voice full of insinuation and barely concealed extortion. Harris Yulin made Mel Bernstein the perfect embodiment of institutional rodava. The cop who had sold out so long ago he didn't even remember being honest. A man who saw criminals not as enemies but as business opportunities. Bernstein represented Miami's systemic corruption. The way Tony's money infected everything it touched. He wasn't an antagonist in the traditional sense. He was willing to look the other way for the right price. But he was also unpredictable, dangerous in his own way. A man who might turn on you if a better offer came along. Yulin played him with oily charm and underlying threat. A cop who was arguably more immoral than the criminals he supposedly pursued. The character served an important function in Scarface, showing that Tony's corruption extended beyond the criminal underworld into the legitimate institutions meant to stop him. Bernstein's casual acceptance of bribes, his willingness to facilitate Tony's operations, demonstrated how thoroughly money could compromise principles. Harris Yulin was already a respected character actor when he made Scarface, known particularly for his extensive theater work on Broadway and regional productions. He brought gravitas and intelligence to every role, never phoning in even small parts. His distinctive voice, deep, authoritative, tinged with menace, made him perfect for authority figures, both legitimate and corrupt. After Scarface, Yulin continued building an impressive career across film, television, and theater. He appeared in Ghostbusters II, Clear and Present Danger, and Training Day. He became a familiar face on television, with recurring roles in series like 24, Frasier, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He worked consistently for decades, always bringing professionalism and depth to his performances. Throughout his career, Yulin remained dedicated to his craft, choosing projects that challenged him artistically rather than chasing commercial success. He continued working into his 80s, appearing in both independent films and major productions, always bringing the same commitment and intelligence that made Bernstein memorable. Tragically, Harris Yulin passed away on June 10, 2025, at age 87, following a heart attack in New York City. His death marked the end of a remarkable career spanning over 6 decades. Colleagues remembered him as a consummate professional, a generous scene partner, and an actor who brought authenticity and depth to every role. No matter how small, he left behind a legacy of consistent excellence, the kind of actor other actors respected, whose presence always elevated any production he joined. Amid this game of power and blood, Tony trusted one man, Omar Suarez. The image is brutal. Omar hanging from a helicopter over the Colombian jungle. Tony watching in horror as Sosa demonstrates the price of betrayal. Murray Abraham made Omar Suarez the slick middleman, the fixer who tried to play both sides and paid the ultimate price for his miscalculation. Omar was the classic operator, smooth, well-dressed, seemingly sophisticated, moving easily between Frank's organization, Tony's ambitions, and Sosa's empire. Abraham played him as a man too clever for his own good. Someone who thought he could manipulate everyone and didn't realize he was being manipulated in turn. When Sosa revealed that Omar was an informant and had him killed, it was a shocking moment that demonstrated the stakes of the world Tony inhabited. Though Omar's role was relatively small, Abraham made it memorable through sheer craft, the way he moved and spoke, carried himself. He created a complete character in limited screen time. Someone who felt lived in and real, despite appearing in just a handful of scenes. What makes Abraham's appearance in Scarface particularly interesting is the timing. The same year the film was released, Abraham won the Academy Award for Best Actor for his brilliant performance as Salieri in Amadeus. He went from supporting player in a controversial gangster film to Oscar winner, demonstrating the remarkable range and talent he possessed. After his Oscar win, Abraham continued working prolifically in film, television, and especially theater. He appeared in The Name of the Rose, Homeland, The Grand Budapest Hotel, and countless other productions. He returned to Broadway regularly, earning Tony nominations and critical acclaim. He became known as an actor's actor, someone who brought intelligence and precision to every role, who never stopped challenging himself. Now in his 80s, Abraham remains active and respected. He's built a career spanning over 5 decades, working with the finest directors and in the most prestigious productions. He's proven that versatility and dedication matter more than typecasting, that character actors can have rich, fulfilling careers without being leading men. And so, from Tony to Omar, from Miami's golden lights to Colombia's rain-soaked jungles, Scarface closed like a symphony of blood and ambition. We have traveled together across 4 decades, following 8 remarkable actors who came together to create one of cinema's most controversial and enduring masterpieces, from Al Pacino, who gave us an iconic performance that defined an era, to F. Murray Abraham, who brought intelligence and nuance to a small but crucial role, from Michelle Pfeiffer, who launched a legendary career, to Paul Shenar, whose talent was taken too soon. Each path tells its own story. Some, like Pacino and Pfeiffer, achieved lasting superstardom, becoming household names whose every project draws attention. Others, like Bauer and Mastrantonio, built solid careers based on consistent work rather than constant fame. Some, like Loggia and Yulin, became those invaluable character actors whose presence elevates any production. And tragically, some, like Shenar, were lost before their full potential could be realized. But they all share one unbreakable bond. They were part of something that transcended its controversial origins to become a cultural touchstone. Scarface wasn't just a film about crime. It was a meditation on the American dream's dark underbelly, on ambition without limits, on the price of wanting everything. It showed us that the immigrant success story could have a sinister shadow, that getting everything you want might mean losing everything that matters. The film's images remain unforgettable. Tony's scarred face, his defiant rage, his cocaine-fueled paranoia, Elvira's cold beauty, Manny's loyal smile turned to shocked betrayal, Gina's innocence corrupted, Frank's cigar smoke and false friendship, Sosa's chilling calm, the chainsaw, the mansion, the mountain of cocaine, the final apocalyptic shootout. These moments have been referenced, parodied, and celebrated in countless ways, becoming part of our shared cultural language. Scarface taught us that the American dream can become an American nightmare when ambition replaces morality, when having it all means losing yourself. Tony Montana wanted the world, and he got it. For a brief moment, before it consumed him entirely, his rise and fall became a cautionary tale, though perhaps not in the way the filmmakers intended. For some, Tony became a hero, an inspiration, proof that you could come from nothing and achieve everything. They missed the point that everything Tony achieved turned to ashes, that his ambition destroyed everyone he loved. The actors who brought this story to life understood the complexity. They didn't play heroes or simple villains, but complicated people navigating a moral wasteland. They brought humanity to characters that could have been cartoons, found truth in a story that operated at operatic extremes. Time has been kind to Scarface. What was once controversial is now classic. What was once excessive is now iconic. The film has influenced everything from hip-hop culture to fashion, from other films to how we talk about ambition and success. Tony Montana's face appears on t-shirts and posters. His quotes are referenced constantly. His story is told and retold as a fundamental American tale. The 8 actors we've explored today were essential to that transformation, their commitment, their talent, their willingness to go to dark places and find truth there. These gifts gave Scarface its power and ensured its immortality. Whether their subsequent careers brought continued glory or quiet satisfaction, whether they're still working or have passed on, whether they achieved superstardom or respected character actor status, SC, they remain forever part of something larger than themselves. They helped create a film that captured something essential about America, about ambition, about the distance between dreams and reality. Time may dim memories. Fashions may change. Cultural moments may pass. But certaines performances, certain films, certain truths remain eternal. Scarface and its unforgettable cast are forever part of cinema's legacy, a dark mirror held up to the American dream, showing us both its promise and its price. The world is theirs. And it was worth the price. Or was it? That question, more than any answer, is why Scarface endures